Hello, and welcome to a presentation about stomach cancer research funding opportunities through the Department of Defense's peer-reviewed cancer research program. Next slide, please. I'm Camille Bonta, and I serve as a policy and advocacy consultant for Debbie Stream Foundation Curing Stomach Cancer, which is pleased to bring this timely webinar to you all in partnership with the American Gastroenterological Association, the American College of Gastroenterology, and the American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy. I ask at this time that if you have any questions, to please put them in the chat throughout the program, and there will be an opportunity for your questions to be answered at the end of the presentation. Next slide. The objectives of today's webinar are to help researchers recognize role of the peer-reviewed cancer research program in funding stomach cancer research, and to learn about peer-reviewed cancer research program funding opportunities and strategies for funding success. In a moment, you'll be hearing from Dr. Donna Kimbark, who is the program manager for the peer-reviewed cancer research program. But first, I want to say just a few words about advocacy efforts to ensure continued funding for stomach cancer through this program. Next slide. In 2014, Debbie Stream Foundation approached members of Congress about including stomach cancer in the program. Advocates made the case for stomach cancer's inclusion, including military relevance and a historic lack of funding for this deadly cancer. That year, Congress included stomach cancer in the program for the first time, and since then, stomach cancer has remained in the program due to ongoing advocacy efforts, and funding for the program has been increasing, providing greater opportunity for researchers than ever before. Next slide. This March, 130 stomach cancer advocates participated in more than 180 meetings with members of Congress and staff. In those meetings, the request was made to include stomach cancer again in the program for fiscal year 2024. Next slide, please. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Donna Kimbark. Dr. Kimbark received her Ph.D. in molecular pharmacology and cancer therapeutics from State University of New York at Buffalo, Roswell Park Cancer Division. And following her postdoctoral training at Johns Hopkins University, she worked in the biotech sector before joining the Congressionally directed medical research programs in 2002. As I mentioned, Dr. Kimbark currently serves as the Health Science Program Manager for the Peer-Reviewed Cancer Research Program. Dr. Kimbark, thank you for joining us today, and I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you very much, Camilla. It's wonderful to be able to talk to everyone today. I'm from the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. I'm going to give you an overview of the fiscal year 23 PRCRP. And first of all, before I do that, I just want to give you an orientation of the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. This is a program that sits with the Defense Health Agency, so you will see some things that are specific to defense and military health. Our vision is to transform healthcare through innovative and impactful research. Our mission, and this is how we do our vision, is to responsibly manage collaborative research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions for service members, veterans, and the American public. A couple of the things that you want to know about CDMRP, just to give yourself some familiarity with the program, is that it started in fiscal year 92, when CDMRP, I should say that it started in 92 with money that came appropriated for women's health, and then in 93, we really launched off with our breast cancer research program. As I said, we fund innovative and impactful research that's biomedical in nature, and what we're trying to do is we really want to transform that healthcare, and we do it. We fund research all over the world and all kinds of different research. So we are a global research funding institute, and we are a program that we are the 5th highest funder of all research, scientific biomedical research. How do we decide what's going to be funded? How do we decide where we're going to go with our funding. I'm going to talk to you about our two-tiered review process, and that involves scientists, clinicians, and consumers. I'm going to talk to you a little bit what a consumer is. And why we're doing this, we really want to advance cures, improvements and breakthroughs for all the diseases, injuries, and conditions that are included under the CDMRP. So let's go a little bit to the peer review cancer research program. I just have a snapshot of our webpage here. This began in fiscal year 2009 with an appropriation of $16 million and congressional language directing the topic areas that can be specific cancers like stomach cancer or other research areas such as metastatic cancers. A total of around 36 topic areas have been included under the PRCRP throughout the years. From fiscal year 09 through 22, we have around $784 million with around a little bit over 900 awards. I want to point out that with the appropriation for fiscal year 23, we are almost to $1 billion for this program. And what is our vision? Specifically for the peer review cancer research program that's under the CDMRP. The vision for this program is to advance mission readiness of those in the U.S. military affected by cancer and to improve their quality of life by decreasing the burden of cancer on service members, their families, veterans, and the American public. And how we do this is by successfully promoting high impact research across the entire cancer care spectrum. That includes prevention, detection, treatment, quality of life, and survivorship. These are very important for our patients, which are our consumers. Now, some of the important parts of our language for the peer review cancer research program is included here. There are 20 different topic areas that are included in the congressional language for the peer review cancer research program. You can see all of them, all the 20 here, and stomach cancer is one of those 20. Applicants must address at least one of the topic areas as directed by Congress. Funds may not be used for breast, kidney, lung, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, rare cancers, or melanoma. I want to point out that means that you don't have to fight off like a lot of those breast cancer researchers or prostate cancer researchers and so on. You might see rare cancers and be concerned about that. Don't be concerned about it because Congress did include that. The inclusion of the rare cancer research program does not prohibit applicants and PRCRP from funding rare cancers or cancers that may be rare by definition. So we're okay with that. Research must be relevant to service members, their families, veterans, and other military beneficiaries. Oops, sorry, I want to go back one. Okay, so how do you deal with the relevance to service members and their families? I know a lot of people say, well, how is stomach cancer specific to the military? First of all, I'm going to tell you that's not what we're looking for here. We're not looking for a cancer that only the military get, because all people get all kinds of cancers, right? So really what we're asking for you to do is to look at that impact of cancer on the military, the impact of being at risk for stomach cancer because you have been exposed to H. pylori. So that would be cancer health risk, right? So we have two different military health focus areas that you can answer to. Either cancer risk factors that because of environmental or occupational exposures, and here we have H. pylori as one of them, or mission readiness, gaps in the cancer care spectrum from prevention, treatment, all the way to survivorship that may actually impact military mission readiness. Because remember, when one person gets cancer, the entire unit gets cancer. That increases force vulnerability and therefore affects mission readiness. So there's no reason not to be able to answer one of these two risk factors, especially with something like stomach cancer. When we go on and we look at stomach cancer, service members deployed to areas of the world where H. pylori is endemic is a real important point to make for stomach cancer because of the fact that there are a lot of military that are deployed like in South Korea and so on. So we have to be cognizant of that. The incidence rates of service members showed lower rates for digestive cancers than the general population, but this is usually only looking at colorectal cancer. So don't let that dissuade you. And we also noticed that, like, for veterans have access to health care through the VA, but very often they don't go to the VA. Very often they'll go to private health care. So we only have access to about 60% of veterans. So we really don't know what the actual incidence rate of stomach cancer is in the veterans after they've left the service. So I did put some information here on the right-hand side of the slide, looking at the funding of stomach cancer from fiscal year 15 through fiscal year 21. As we see here, there's been 50 awards made and over $30 million invested. I really want to pick that up. I want this slice of the pie to be larger for stomach cancer. So it's important for researchers to respond to our solicitations. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, go to the next slide. Okay. So as I said, we have these topic areas, and I just want to show you how we have internally managed these topic areas. Internally, we segregate each one of these topic areas to be specific for a portfolio. It's how we manage them, and there's really not much that you need to know about that, but we do put stomach cancer under a gastroenterology portfolio. And all the stomach cancer, specific stomach cancer applications are only looked at by a peer review panel that is specific for stomach cancer. It's not looking at colorectal cancer. It's not looking at brain cancer. It's not looking at head and neck cancers. It's looking specifically at stomach cancer. So it's important for you to pick the right topic area when you are putting together your application, so that we actually place your application on the correct peer review panel. So let's talk a little bit about our strategic plan, because this strategic plan really feeds into the types of applications we're asking for. The first type is advancing convergent science in cancer research. This is our virtual cancer center, as well as our other funding opportunities. We're really not going to be looking at that this year for fiscal year 23. We're looking at the second initiative this year, and that's supporting the research continuum towards fielded science. This is really important to us. We've been around for almost 15 years now. It's really important for us to see more coming out of the program at this point. We need to have fielded science. We need to have outcomes and in your hand type of interventions. So we're really pushing the envelope here and trying to get towards fielded science. And what does that mean? That means that we're going to change our initiatives. So I'm going to talk about each one of these types of award mechanisms. I'm going to talk about each one of them, but I did want to highlight ones that are brand new this year. The first one that I'm going to highlight is the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award. That's an important one because it's really looking at an area that not a lot of people pay attention to. How are patients doing during and after their care? How do they handle it? Are they able to have a quality of life? So we're really looking at that patient well-being and survivorship. We're also adding in the Advancing Cancer Care Through Clinical Trials Award mechanism. You can also see that we have several of our other mechanisms that we have offered multiple years in a row: the IDEA Award, the Career Development Award, the Impact Award, and the Translational Team Science Award. I'm going to go through each one of these so you don't have to memorize them right now. When we look at each one of these, this is just really a snapshot slide. This is the slide that if you're going to memorize anything, this is one you would memorize. But we have all of this information on our website, so you don't really need to memorize anything. An important thing here is that we have a couple of these that have those stars, okay? And some that don't have stars. So why is that? The ones that have stars have a pre-application screening process. What does that mean? That means you have to put together a pre-proposal, and then it will be reviewed. And during that review, it will be recommended which ones of those pre-proposals will be invited for a full application. So the Advancing Cancer Care Through Clinical Trials Award is going to be a pre-proposal. The idea award and the impact award is going to be a pre-proposal. You must be invited to actually get that full proposal in. And why am I making such a big deal about this? It's because the deadline date is on the 25th of May for that pre-proposal. Okay, you have to get that in. Now, I do want to point out that our solicitations will come out next week, so you can't go in there live and take a look at them just yet. Next week, they are scheduled to be released next week. So for the Advancing Cancer Care Through Clinical Trials Award, the IDEA Award, and the Impact Award, each one of those will need that pre-proposal, and it has to be in by the 25th of May. Now, the other ones, the IDEA Development Award, the Career Development Award for fellows, the Career Development Award for residents, the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award, and the Translational Team Science Award do not require an invitation. Therefore, all you have to do is put in what we call a letter of intent. And that letter of intent is just going to have the basic information, and that's due all the way in July of 25th of July. So let's go through a little bit more in depth in these ones that require those invitations. The IDEA Award is requiring a one-page pre-proposal, okay? You might have some other documents like bio sketches that you have to put together, but it's a one-page pre-proposal. So it should be pretty quick for you to put together. The preliminary data is discouraged, okay? Before we used to say it's okay to include preliminary data, but this is really for basic research. This is only a $400K award over 2 years. What we're looking for here is for you to generate that preliminary data to go to an R01. This is not an R01 type of award mechanism. This is an early concept, early idea award mechanism. This is to get a chunk of change in your lab so that you can generate that high risk, high gain research and move that forward. This is for independent investigators, and it's due on the 25th. That one-page pre-proposal is due on the 25th of May. All of the information about what you should put in that pre-application is in the award solicitation. The Impact Award, if you looked at that one when I had the bridge over it, it's slightly over. It's more advanced. We're looking for applied and translational research. So this is a one-page pre-proposal as well, but it does have a clinical trial option. So preliminary data is required here. Here you are allowed to go ahead and put that preliminary data in. We're looking for a continuity of research with an emphasis on near-term impact. So we're really trying to push the envelope here. Here we have an assistant professor or equivalent, the eligibility stats, and it's 1 million over 3 years. And once again, that is going to be due on the 25th of May. The full application will be due on the 12th of September for both the IDEA Award and the Impact Award. Now, the Advancing Clinical Care Through Clinical Trials Award is a 3-page pre-proposal. Why is it 3 pages? Because this is an award mechanism where we're just funding clinical trials. We want that preclinical work already done, and you must submit that preclinical work to review, so that can be reviewed. A clinical trial is absolutely required. In the Impact Award that I just talked about, the clinical trial is an option. Okay, here, this is all about clinical trials. No preclinical projects that are going to lead up to an IND or an IDE are allowed. An IND and IDE submission by the time of application must be submitted, okay? And the assistant professor or equivalent is allowed here for eligibility, and it's a $3 million award over 4 years. The pre-proposal is due at the same time as the IDEA and the Impact Award. You'll find out your invitation at the same time that you'll find out for the Impact or IDEA Award, but the full application is due on the 27th of September. You have a little bit more time with this one because it is a clinical trial. So, excuse me, the letter of intent opportunities are shown here. We're just going to go through them fairly quickly. The Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award, You may be wondering if you happen to be a behavioral scientist, what happened to the Behavioral Health Science Award that we used to have? Well, it turned into the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award. We wanted a broader net here. So this is a letter of intent. You just have to say you're going to apply. It's good to be able to put in that information about the topic areas that you're going to review, that you're going to look at, so that we have that information for administrative purposes. Here we're looking for an independent investigator, and pilot clinical trials are allowed, but if you are going to go ahead and do a pilot clinical trial, then you have to submit preliminary data. Otherwise, you don't have to submit preliminary data for this one. Really what we're looking here, the intent of this award mechanism is all summed up in that third bullet: quality of life, preservation of function, neurocognitive issues, and long-term side effects, what we're looking for here. How are we going to mitigate all of that? And that's $1 million over 3 years. Our Translational Team Science Award hasn't really changed in the last few years. Here it's a letter of intent with a clinical trial option. You do not need to do a clinical trial, but you have to have an association with a clinical trial here, because this is correlative studies that are associated with an ongoing or completed clinical trial. That's why we have allowed you to go ahead and fund clinical trials with this one, just in case that clinical trial is part of what you're working on. But really what we're looking at is the correlative studies. And this is a partnering award mechanism with 2 to 3 partners at the level of assistant professor or above and equivalent are working together in on a single project. And this is a $2.5 million for 4 years. Now, I want to point out that one of those partners should not just be a core that's providing samples. That's not what we call a partner. That's just a collaborator. We want partners to be really intellectual, have an intellectual stake in this. Now, we do have the Career Development Award that has 2 options: the fellow option or the resident option. When you open up the Career Development Award, when you look at that solicitation, when it is released next week, excuse me, there's only going to be one of them. You're only going to find the Career Development Award. You'll click on that, and then you can either look at the fellow option or the resident option. The fellow option is for either scientists, any type of scientist, or physician scientist within 7 years of their terminal degree. Preliminary data is not required, and that 7 years does not count your residency, or if you happen to have, you went out on maternity leave for some period of time. Those don't count against that 7 years. What does count against that 7 years is time spent as a postdoc. So preliminary data are not required here. This really is supporting early career investigators towards further independence. So we're really looking at research assistant professors, instructors. Independent lab space is not required at this point, but it is $400K over 3 years with a research, an element of research that is the main gist of this award mechanism. It's only called a fellow option for the fact of the matter is that we're really looking to set aside some money for those early career investigators. Now, what about the resident option? The resident option is really for residents that are in a resident program, an accredited resident program, to participate in research. We really want them to start learning how to be physician scientists and actually have a stake in the research. So this preliminary data is not required here. It does support 2 different levels of research. Say, for instance, you're a resident and you only can offer 1 year to do this research. You can only set aside that 1 year. So that's to 1 year resident. This is a research level of 1 year. And so you're going to have a $200K limit of your budget. And so your project is probably going to be a bit smaller. It's going to be a little bit more focused, and you're not going to reach out to really move forward. You're probably just getting that preliminary data all together. Now, research level 2 is a little bit more in depth. This is a $400K for 2 years. You can set aside some protected time for 2 years. You're really going to go all out to really put together a research project that might take some more time, like animal work takes more time and so on. So you might be looking at a 2-year project there. Letter of intent for all of these is due on the 25th of July. Since you don't need a letter, you don't need an invitation, you can start working on your application as soon as our solicitations hit the streets. You can start working on your full application. And when you start working on that full application, just make sure that you put a reminder on your calendar to put in that letter of intent on the 25th and submit that application on the 10th of August. Now, I do want to tell you where to find those letters, those funding opportunities and everything. And that includes the CDMRP website and email blasts. Get on that email blasts. Funding opportunities include going on to grants.gov and looking under CFDA 12.420. Our website, as I said, and our portal. It's the electronic biomedical research applications portal, or EBRAP. You can find it there. I suggest that if you are interested in any of these opportunities, that you go on to EBRAP and you put together your login and all of that. Get yourself all situated and ready to roll. So you can always find, you can find all of that by just going to the CDMRP website, and it will direct you accordingly. Now, how do I understand? I keep on talking about solicitations and funding opportunities. How do I get to understand the goals of a program, the intent of the award mechanism, and all of that? Well, you have to read the funding opportunity. It's really important for you to focus in on the program goals, which is the award intent, the focus areas and topic areas. We do have areas of military focus that you have to address. We do have overarching challenges that you should address as well. So all of these you have to kind of tear apart and figure out how you're going to answer each one of these. Look at the eligibility. I talked a little bit about eligibility here, and look at the review criteria. We publish all of our peer review and programmatic review criteria right in the program announcement. So you really should read that announcement carefully, put tabs in it, highlight it, ask questions. It's really important. So really the areas that we're really looking at right now is those funding opportunities will be released that first week of April. Pre-application receipt for the IDEA Award, the Impact Award, and the Clinical Trial Award are going to be due on the 25th of May, or the ones that without a pre-proposal will be due in July. And then you'll be waiting for that invitation to submit for the ones that require that invitation, and then application receipt. It's all sitting around August and September time period. After that, we have our peer and programmatic review, and I'm going to go over what peer and programmatic review is going to do and how you can use that to your advantage. Okay, so what is peer and programmatic review? Our peer review is a criterion-based evaluation of your full proposal. The peer reviewers are recruited every year. We don't have standing panels or study sections like the NIH does. They're recruited every single year. And what we're doing here is we're recruiting panel members that are specific for stomach cancer, and that consumers that have had stomach cancer or have taken care of their loved one with stomach cancer. And what they're looking at is they're looking at the criteria that's within the peer review, within the program announcement under peer review. And they're going to determine the scoring, the strengths and weaknesses based on what's written in the peer review. So, and they're going to they're not supposed to, and I tell them not to, they're not supposed to compare your application to anybody else's application that is on that peer review panel. That's not their job. Their job is just to look at yours and to see how you did only. So the outcomes there is a summary statement. And that summary statement has your scores, your numeric scores, but it also has the strengths and the weaknesses. And all that goes over to programmatic review. At Programmatic Review, here we have a panel of subject matter experts, including scientists, clinicians, active duty oncologists, veterans, as well as consumers, all sitting there, and they will start looking at each one of these proposals and their summary statements. And in the summary statements, they're going to be looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. And they're going to see whether or not you adhere to the intent of the program. If you're really interested in the IDEA award, was that really innovative, or did you have a whole bunch of preliminary data? Preliminary data really shows that you've been working on this for quite a while, and maybe that's not as innovative as you think, okay? So maybe that should have been over in the impact award. So think about which mechanism you should really be looking at. Program relevance is really important too. Relevant to military. That's really important for the PRCRP. Relevant to the military. Relevant to our overarching challenges, which I don't have enough time to go over today, but they are all published on our website as well in each one of the program announcements. So look at what the program relevance is, what the potential for impact is. Even those IDEA awards, which are the basic ones, they need what the impact is going to be. Why this would be important to the next step along the way. How are you going to get to the next hill on in that valley so that we can move forward? Once again, there's no pay line here. We try to fund each and every one of our topic areas. It's one of the things that the panel is very cognizant of, and we obligate all of our funds up front. So if there's no funds next year for PRCRP, you'll still be funded for the entire project as long as you hit all of your milestones. So what I told you that you could use the peer review criteria and the peer review as a trick in order to go ahead and move forward with what you need to do. And that is in the peer review criteria under section 2E1A, peer review. Okay, go to that section and you look and you'll see an example of the peer review criteria. This is actually for the Career Development Award. Okay, and what you see here is what's under the principal investigator. When you look under the principal investigator, you'll see all these questions that the peer reviewers are actually going to be answering. Now, what you need to do is you need to make sure that your application answers each and every one of these questions. And that goes for when you get to research strategy and feasibility. Have you answered every single question from pitfalls to alternative strategies and all of that? Have you answered the questions? And are you paying attention to the intent of the award mechanism? So it's really important for you to take a look at that peer review criteria as you're writing. It's a good idea to just be able to check off those things. Now, as we go to programmatic review criteria, that's also very important, okay? What are the programmatic reviewers looking at? Your programmatic panel, you can go ahead and you can see that programmatic panel right on our website, and you'll see here I have an example of what the programmatic reviewers are looking at for the Career Development Award specifically. Here you see the intent of the award mechanism. If you're a fellow or a resident, we're really going to be looking at that. The portfolio composition, we want to fund ones in stomach cancer, so we're going to be looking to make sure that we're funding in stomach cancer. So it's really important for you that you get up at the top of the cream of the crop for the stomach cancer. You have to answer that military health focus area, either under cancer risk factors or in the mission readiness and our overarching challenges. And then we have relative impact. It's always important. One of the things that I like to say, and I'm going to say this again, is that, science is great, but impactful science is really outstanding. We wanted to change the face of how people deal with some stomach cancer. We don't want people getting that diagnosis of stomach and feeling hopeless and helpless. So this is what this science is all about. Okay, some strategies to answer your challenges along the way. Deadlines are important. They're on the very front of the program announcement. Keep that in mind. Dissect the funding opportunity and really understand it. Take it apart. I don't know. Sacrifice a tree here. Print it out. Circle things. Tab things. What you need to do. It's very important to bring that entire team together all at once. Coordinate your team efforts. If you need a biostatistician, if you need a patient advocate like you do in the patient well-being and survivorship, bring them together. For that clinical trial, there's a lot of moving parts with a clinical trial. Make sure you bring everyone together, study coordinators, biostatisticians, talk to an ethicist, bring people together and get their points of view. Grantsmanship, always, always, always speak in a clear voice. Forget the jargon. You do not want a peer reviewer who is exhausted reading your application because there's too much jargon. Because exhaustion leads to annoyance, and annoyance leads to a lower score as far as I'm concerned, when I've seen in the past. Review your documents prior to submission and use the verification period. You'll notice on the front cover of our program announcements, we'll have deadline, the application deadline, and then a couple of days later, there'll be the verification deadline. And that verification deadline, in that period, you can actually make sure that all of your stuff is in, and it should be in. And use that peer review criteria as your checklist. Remember to state your ideas up front and then back it up. This is your chance to do a TED Talk. You know, make your case with how your research aligns to the intent of the mechanism. As I said, cool science is good, impactful science is great. And show how it's impactful. Show how it's important to patients, even if it's basic research, and speak as a layperson. Don't just assume that people will understand it. Use that plain language. And then clearly define your team's skills and outline your justification of why you can achieve that anticipated outcomes. So some pitfalls to avoid: do not include panel members for your program and fiscal year to which you are applying. It's really important not to include them. All the panel members are shown right there on the right-hand side of this slide. You can also find them on our webpage. Do not exceed the page limits, and do not miss the submission deadline. The grants.gov validation can take up to 72 hours. That means that you're going to submit, and then you're going to miss the verification period because of the fact that the grants.gov validation, it takes up to 72 hours if you submit at the deadline. If you submit at the deadline, you are going to miss the verification period if it takes 72 hours for your application to be validated. There's nothing we can do about it. We do not have purview over the grants.gov system. Remember that system-to-system submissions are sometimes problematic, so you should give yourself time, more than a couple of hours. This is not something that you do at the last moment. And application verification in EBRAP is possible before the deadline, but not after. Do not ignore that verification period, and also submit the correct project narrative and budget, okay? Because these cannot be modified during the verification period. Once again, these are our funding opportunities. I'm just starring the ones that have that pre-application that needs a screening and an invitation, and also take account of what option you are looking at in each one of these when they have options for a clinical trial, options for resident, options for fellow. Make sure that you're picking the right option. And with that, I will take any questions, and you can get more information on our cdmrp.health.mil website.
Thank you, Donna. Are there, Brittany, I don't see any questions, but.
Oh, yes, a question did just come in.
Okay.
So the person is Sam Wong, and he asked, are foreign collaborators allowed?
Yes, they are allowed. Foreign collaborators are allowed, and we do fund, with our Career Development Award, we do fund people that are on visas. They don't have to be US citizens.
Thank you. Unless we give a little bit more time for someone to type in the chat, there are no additional questions. And if you do have any questions, please use this moment to type in the chat.
And Brittany, this will, for those who may have joined late or want to hear this presentation again, it has been recorded and it will be sent back around to those who participated, correct?
Yes, so if they registered and they're on this actual live, they will get the recording directly to their inbox. Otherwise, anyone else would be able to watch it on the DDF YouTube channel as well as the DDF website.
Thank you, Brittany. And we will also be circulating once those solicitations are released. We will be sending that out to everyone as well. So for those of you who aren't on the Peer Review Cancer Research Program listserv or checking that website every day, we will be, and we will get that announcement out to everyone.
Yeah, I expect it will be out. I expect the solicitations will be out Monday or Tuesday.
Perfect. We did get another question. The question is, what needs to be in place for the clinical trial, the ACCT, and also the IRB approved protocol?
You should have an IND or an IDE in place by the time of submission. You should build in to your SOW. You should build in at least 3 months for approvals at the level of the DoD, because we do have an extra approval process. So it's really great to already have it, but if you don't already have a centralized IRB approval, you should be working on that as you move forward with your protocol.
Thank you. And it looks like that is all for questions so far.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, once again, Dr. Kimbark, thank you so much for your very informative presentation. And thank you to everyone who was able to join and listen. We are very fortunate to have Stomach Cancer in this program. It provides a tremendous opportunity for research funding, and wish everyone the best of luck as they work on their applications.
Before we conclude, someone just typed in another question. The question is, would you support research in other countries?
Yes, we fund globally.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, and if that is all, I guess that would conclude today's program.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Go.